Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. I am also somebody who used to be avoidantly attached. And I work with a lot of individuals who are avoidant, who are both dismissive or fearful. Like I work with both. And typically, if it's fearful, it's leaning dismissive. And today I wanted to go over signs a female avoidant is changing and healing. I'm going to give a little bit of a backstory of my own case, and then I'll kind of go into the change. But I want this to be understood that my experience is not every single female avoidance experience, okay? And I think the reason why it can be a little, or an avoidant just in general, and I think the reason why is because unfortunately how I changed is because I hit rock bottom, right? And so a lot of people believe every single avoidant who needs to change needs to hit rock bottom to change. That was my experience. However, I work with a lot of avoidants who that is not their experience. And my partner, he's not female, he's male, but he changed. He's also avoidant. He changed just by healing through the relationship. He didn't have to hit rock bottom, but I did, right? And that is something that a lot of people believe all female avoidance or avoidance in general need to happen to change. That's not always the case. And so I want to talk about what I remember in myself, what I see in my patients of the signs and aspects that showed up in me that a lot of people recognize was me actually genuinely changing, okay? And the very first one, which I think is important, it's not always the case, but I think it's more common with female avoidance, which is why I bring it up, is they start recognizing that they have an attachment issue and it's avoidant, especially if it's dismissive avoidant. They need to know that that's what the issue is. Not all the time, but it's important. And I want to get into why. A lot of female avoidants do not know they are avoidant because social media or the general consensus or the expectation is that females tend to be more anxious. And so a female avoidant does not know that they are avoidantly attached because they have this subconscious belief that all females can't be avoidant. They can't be afraid of commitment. I'm a female. How is that possible? That doesn't make any sense. You're just making an excuse, or you're just pressuring me, or you're just saying something unnecessary. That doesn't make sense. Maybe you're asking for too much, right? And so they deflect what you're saying about their attachment issues, partly because it's scary to change and it's scary to admit you're wrong, but it's also because it's really hard to believe that this is the case because they have this subconscious belief that females are just not avoidant. And it can be challenging because I think that's one of the bigger barriers, but it's a lot easier nowadays because there are a lot more, videos going on and research, etc. But it is something to recognize that a very good sign to know that a female avoidant is changing is that she's more aware that she's an avoidant, or she recognizes, okay, I do avoid commitment, or I am afraid to settle down, or I don't like to express my feelings, and I am stubborn, and I am rigid, and I don't want to change, and I realize that this is not normal or it's not healthy, and I realize I'm pushing people away. That is just something to think about. That's the first one I want to bring up. It's not always necessary, but it's important, okay? The next one is that she apologizes and shows action with her improvements and her apologies, okay? This means that she recognizes she made a mistake, and you deserve to know that she's sorry and that she wants to show you she's not going to continue to make this mistake, okay? The next one is very important as well, okay? She states that she recognizes you and appreciates you. She realizes that she's grateful that you're in her life, that she's happy that you're here, and that you do make her life easier. It's very important to recognize that avoidant individuals, and this is for, most of these are actually for like both male and female, but I think it's a little more specific to female. When she recognizes that you add to her life and that you are valuable, it makes her less likely to run away from relationships in general because she feels like it benefits her. That's why that one's really important, okay? The next one is common with both male and female, okay? They're more relaxed and less rigid in the bedroom. Avoidant individuals, some of them can be comfortable being in the bedroom, but it's usually if they don't feel an emotional attachment. If they feel much more attached and comfortable with you and the relationship is deeper, it's really hard for them to attach that in the bedroom because they have a lot of, they get to, it's like they get in their head a lot. Are they performing right? How come they don't feel connected to you? Are they supposed to be romantic? Like, this is both female and male avoidance. And so when you see that they're more relaxed, less rigid, and they're less afraid of the atmosphere of what can occur in the bedroom, they feel a lot more safe with you. And it's likely that she's changing. And it's very important to recognize that the bedroom is a triggering topic for a lot of avoidant folks. Not always, but it can be. And I had mentioned before, I can't really detail it on YouTube just because some of the triggers are like the mechanical, you know what I'm saying, I hope. And so I had mentioned I'll make a course or something separate so that you guys can have access to that. I tried to look at free options and they pretty much had the same issues as YouTube. Plus, I am licensed, and so I do want to be a little bit more protective of what I do. And so that's likely going to come in the near future, but I'm just letting you know I'm still trying to add those details in my videos as much as I can so that, you know, as many folks have access to it as possible. So that is something important to realize, okay? The next one is that they feel more comfortable and relaxed when hugging, kissing, or any forms of physical intimacy, okay? This is very important to recognize. Avoidant individuals can sometimes feel a little bit suffocated by physical forms. It's not always the case, but it can happen. And so when you're seeing that they're more relaxed, more willing, more comfortable to engage in physical connection with you, this is a sign that they are in fact changing, okay? The next one is that they admit. She admits she wants to change. She wants to get better. She wants to connect with you more. This is very, very important, okay? It means that she feels, of course, that she wants to change, but when she's mentioning like she wants to connect more, she wants to lean in, her negative perception of love is now being removed. Her perception that love is a weakness or showing feelings or letting people in is a problem and it's a risk and it's going to ruin my life or it's going to take up so much time and it's such a burden. She's starting to say, no, you know, I do want to connect more. I do want to show up. I want to make a difference. I don't want to be this way anymore. I don't want to push people away. You're seeing those things start showing up, even just a little bit, even if it's subtle. It means that she is wanting to change and she wants to heal. And healing comes in many different ways and it has its own direction. It might be a little slower for some avoidant individuals, some it might be faster. It doesn't mean that there is no change. Remember that it's very important to recognize, look at the small details much more than the big picture. Well, you should see it from the big picture, but what I mean is if you're expecting to get married in like a year, that might not happen. But if you're seeing you're inching closer to marriage or this person is becoming more comfortable physically connecting with you, hugging, kissing, whatever it may be, that's a sign that this person is changing, okay? This one, the next one, is a little bit more common with female avoidance. I see this a lot when I work with female avoidance. It's just something that happens probably because of the gender norms. It's that they're setting more boundaries with friends and just all the people in their life. Female avoidance more particularly, and this is not something that I struggled with, but it does happen with some female avoidance, okay? I see this a lot with a lot of them that I work with, but it's not always the case. They don't always, I think it's more common with fearful avoidance, if I'm being honest. Their friends or the people in their life or their job, whatever, influences them, and so they put a lot more time into those avenues than you. And I literally have like a couple couples on my caseload right now who they're struggling with this, female avoidant. She's not saying no to anybody, but she feels like her partner, it's a good thing, but it's also not good, is so close to her that she can kind of put him off because she feels like she trusts him, she loves him. And even though he might be disappointed, she's not scared of his disappointment because she loves him, but she's uncomfortable with the disappointment of strangers or friends or her boss. And so she's putting that all on her plate and she's making less time for you. But if you see that she's setting boundaries with these people, you know, she tells her buddy, hey, you know, I don't want to go on that, you know, girls trip to New York. I really don't want to. And I just want to stay in. And she spends that time with you. And you know that she genuinely doesn't even like some of these trips and she stood up for herself. This is a sign that she is healing. And she's opening up and admitting, I don't need to go out and be whatever. I want to be myself. And who I am is a person who wants to be with you or whatever it is. Maybe she just wants to stay in and read a book, whatever it is. But she has set that boundary, okay? That is really important. Now, the next one and the last one, I want to mention, and this one is for all avoidance, but is a little bit more common with female avoidants just because I had mentioned a lot of them don't want to admit that they're an avoidant because it's not common to, a lot of people have less understanding of female avoidance, okay? It's that they recognize where their attachment issue developed, okay? Now, with male avoidance, they probably need this as well. But for female avoidance more particularly, the upbringing of an avoidant individual is more common with men for a reason, and I'll explain it. Male norms, at least in America, you are taught, more commonly, don't cry, or if you do that, you're going to get beat up. Like, don't show that emotion. Or maybe the parent is saying, cheer up, let's go do this instead. Or, I don't care if it takes you 5 attempts, you're going to shovel the driveway. Or, you're 14, go out and get a job, or 16 or wherever your state is, whatever it is, and go pay for that car yourself, right? And until you pay it off, get that car. It's more common in Midwest culture, but you can see this happening, right? It's more common with men. So if you're a female avoidant or your partner is a female avoidant, it's very important for her to realize, where did this come from? Because it's not common, or not as common, for a female to be expected to put away her feelings and perform a certain way. And that must mean that likely they're obviously the same with male avoidance. There was trauma going on, or maybe one of her parents was an avoidant. And so she was raised to shut her emotions off. And until she understands where that comes from, it'll be a little bit more challenging for her to truly accept that she really is an avoidant, okay? So I hope this video makes sense. I'm sorry if it was triggering. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.